If your business is not growing, maybe it's your fault. Let's talk about it. So, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for being part of it and really appreciate your comments, your feedback. Really good. So, if you find any of this stuff useful by any chance, please feel free to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And also share this with anyone who you might think will find this useful in any way. So, if you're new today and this is your first video, thank you for clicking on it. And this is the B-Boy project where we discuss anything and everything that we think is useful to become the best version of yourself. So what we're talking about today is predominantly on entrepreneurship. Okay, so this is to do with the hidden mindset traps of entrepreneurship. Many people actually think, I want to run a business, I want to start a business. And there's a lot of people that already started a business that are going through struggles and challenges that they don't particularly share about. What we tend to find is whenever someone is in business, in whatever service you're providing, whatever products you're selling, we tend to portray the wins, we tend to portray the beautiful side of things, and we don't tend to talk about the challenges that we got through to get to that beautiful stuff. And some of the beautiful stuff that people portray are not necessarily genuine. It's sort of like showing a slide picture of it, of what it looks like or what it should look like. And what that does really in most cases is anyone who tries to get into business is expecting that. It creates an expectation of that's what success actually looks like. Therefore, if you're not looking like that particular thing that people are portraying, then you're failing. And this is what I want us to talk about today. So we'll go through descriptions or essentially definitions to start with, in terms of understanding the mindset part of entrepreneurship itself. So we've got entrepreneurship triggers a profound psychological shift. And when we say a psychological shift, we're talking about shifting from the employee's mindset. Therefore, someone else is responsible for all processes, for anything that should be happening in this company. I'm just following instructions. So you're given a standard operating procedure. Just give me what I need to do today and pay me for the hours that I'm working for. This is the employment mindset. And when you're starting in entrepreneurship, it's a profound shift in psychological mindset part of it, and looking at what it is that you should be understanding and what is supposed to be required of you to run a business. So that's where it starts. Founders face isolation, where the failures feel like personal attacks. I can speak from experience on that. And toxic comparison, and also a misunderstanding of the ego. So these are the three aspects that I want us to go through. Okay, the first one is the isolation element, the comparison, and also the ego. This is worth understanding on the entrepreneurship side of it, but also see if you can pick out elements of this on how this can help you on a personal aspect as well. Okay, so there's three things I want us to be going through. Firstly, on isolation is the lone wolf illusion. Many people think I'm supposed to be doing this on my own, essentially believing that nobody else understands what I'm going through, nobody else can get it, therefore I'm just going to go at it on my own. I'm going to shift out of my current environment, I'm going to shift out and cut off people that have usually supported me because they just don't get it, and therefore I'm going to do everything on my own. That's the isolation. You've cut yourself out of your typical support function, and therefore you are now vulnerable. At that point, you're now vulnerable. Now, there's many people who would see that as an issue, but there's also an understanding of why some of that is also useful. It's relevant, it's important, because there are times where your current environment really doesn't get it. And when I say they don't get it, I mean they don't understand what it is that you're trying to achieve, because it's not something that they've ever experienced. And some people may actually be projecting their own fears on your dreams, and therefore they will pull you back under the visor of I care for you. don't do that. So it's understandable how you may want to cut off and go at it, but then don't go at it alone, because the things that you're trying to achieve, someone else has already achieved them. See if you can actually get support from other people that already have the experience. So there's this illusion of I have to do it on my own. The answer is you don't. You might not be doing it with the people that you want to do it with, but you can still do it with someone else. Okay, that's the first part about the lone wolf illusion. The next part is personalized failure. Business setbacks stop being more data points and form or morph into direct indictment. The next part is personalized failure. So any failures within the business, they shift from being data that is just derived from your business services or things that you're trying to do, key performance indicators. It shifts from being a failure on what you're trying to do isn't working, or it's not the right thing for the product, or it's not the right thing for the customer, for the clients. It shifts from that into a personal attack. It becomes a personal vendetta. If something that I've tried does not work, that means I have not worked, I have failed, I have done something wrong. You internalize and personalize failures instead of that product in that area doesn't quite work out. Maybe we should try a different product, or maybe we should try a different area. Maybe there's a seasonality to what you're trying to do. Maybe it works better in summer, maybe it works better in winter. It comes out of the data itself that you can use to analyze and see how you can improve, and it becomes personalized. That becomes an issue, okay? And that's part of the isolation element, where you look at failure of a product or a service and you personalize it. The third part is social shrinkage, and this touches on what we were speaking about in terms of coming out of the typical circle of people that you already had, whether it's family or it's friends, and you announce that this is what I'm trying to do. You have an element of isolation when you figure out that these people either don't get it or are not supportive of what you're trying to do, or they're portraying or projecting their fears onto your dreams, and you try to come out of it. The social shrinkage means the people that you have around you who are driving you or helping you to get to where you want to be, there's less of them than the people that were not dreaming of the dreams that you have. So essentially, self-imposed exhaustion, results of cutting off meaningful relationships and rejecting downtime. So the element of walking away from your friend's circle and choosing to do things on your own because you believe they don't get it. And also, this is another thing which is a big issue of thinking that because you are resting, you are wasting time and not actually focusing on recouping your energy so that you can fully focus on the challenges that you have. Entrepreneurs in most cases beat themselves up over and over again over the idea of resting. So resting seems to be a waste of time. So that's an element that is really important to understand, that that's not necessarily the case. So now if we move into comparison, which is a big thing, and many people may have heard the statements that comparison is a thief of joy. And this is why. The first part is the highlight reel trap. Okay, and we're talking about real as in REEL. Most people will look at what things are supposed to be like in a short clip out of context. And we look at someone's overnight success, which is a success that has taken 5 years to become that overnight success. Just because you've just heard about it now, it seems like it's something that they started yesterday and they're now as successful as you can see them now. You're just seeing things in small clips, you're seeing things in a short version without understanding how that person got there. Now, there's one element of your perception of what it is, but there's also a secondary issue of some entrepreneurs who have actually succeeded portrayed that way. Okay, and it's a fault on the entrepreneurs who make it seem like their overnight success was actually overnight, and we know that it wasn't. And anything that is worth keeping is one that takes the longest time to actually build. So measuring your messy behind the scenes reality against others' polished success, which is an element of what you can look at on a personal aspect, is looking at someone else's Instagram and thinking that that's their norm. And then you look at yourself as the messy part and think, I should be like that. That's the comparison trap that you don't want to be stuck in. The next part is vanity metrics, okay? The things that are vain. So chasing the superficial markers like the head count or capital raises, like the amount of cars, like the clothes that they're wearing, like the amount of money in terms of revenue, those are vanity measures. This is where you're looking at what you could be making in money rather than focusing on the product, focusing on the service, focusing on what solutions you're bringing and what problems you're actually solving. This is what's more important than what you will get for the work that you're doing. So whenever I hear any of my mentees, for example, saying that I would like to make X amount of money, I'm like, you're focusing on the wrong thing. You don't come into business to make money. You come into business to solve problems. Money is a consequence of it. The third part on that is in the imposter fatigue. So constantly feeling behind because your internal doubts contrast the external bravado. So ultimately, there's an element of being an entrepreneur. You're supposed to look a certain way, you're supposed to act a certain way, you're supposed to speak a certain way, because if you don't, then you don't look like a business person, right? And then you perform. You're out there showing people what things should look like rather than actually acting on or being on what reality is. And then this actually creates a fatigue, which is called an imposter fatigue. This is generated by the element of comparison because you're seeing what other people look like when they're successful. Therefore, you try to live that life, and yet it doesn't quite look like with you internally. And you now have self-doubt and you're questioning yourself on the things that you're portraying to other people. And internally, you're thinking, what are you doing? That's not you. Don't pretend that you're making this amount of money. The car that you're driving at the moment, you borrowed it. And anything that you've got, you haven't really got. And the internal doubt actually eats away at you. That's the fatigue of imposter syndrome. Okay, now the third part that I want us to go through, which is the final part, is the ego. So essentially, the first part of the ego is the hero syndrome. Okay, insisting on touching every project because you believe nobody else can do that. Now, many people will know this feeling of, if you're the one who started the business, essentially you become every department to start with before you start bringing other people in. But because you started this is your baby. No one else can do it the way that you can. No one else understands it the way that you can. And that is a terrible idea, because the more the business needs you, the less valuable it will be. And then eventually you become the bottleneck of your own business growth. You will stop your business from growing if it requires you every single time. So this is the hero syndrome, where everything needs to go through you. Terrible idea. That's ego. The reason why people hold on to that is because if people need me every time something needs to happen, it makes me feel great. It feeds the ego. You need to get to a point where you are as irrelevant as possible in that business. That's the best place that the business can be to actually grow. The next part is defensiveness of truth, or the defensiveness to truth, treating expert advice or market signals or constructive criticism as personal attack. I'm smiling because I know this. I feel this. So you get to a point where the ego is that big when someone who is experienced or things are changing in the market and the industry and it's going against what you've either predicted or what you want to be the case, it feels like a personal attack. And whenever you feel that personal attack, or you feel like someone giving you advice, it feels like they're getting at you or they're attacking you and they're giving you a harsh criticism, then that's a sign that your ego is now taken over. That's a sign that your ego has gone to a point where it's not been checked. You shouldn't feel attacked by a change. You shouldn't feel attacked by a piece of advice. If it feels that way, then it's a sign that you might need to check your ego. The final part of it is arrogance of control, which is part of the ego as well. Refusing to delegate or adapt. It comes in touch with the first part that we spoke about, which is the hero syndrome. Now that you know that, or you've told yourself that everything has to happen through you, everything has to happen after I've actually approved it, and therefore nothing happens without me, which makes me feel good, feeds the ego, makes me hold on to everything. everything, which means I then actually refuse to delegate. If someone else comes in, even if they're better than me at this task, I won't give them that task because it relinquishes the power and authority that I had that feeds my ego. But ultimately, the more you destroy that ego, the bigger your business will grow, because you do not want to be the one who's in charge of everything, because you become the bottleneck of your business. Now, this is an aspect that I think is worth understanding even in your personal life. I'll give an example of your own children if you have any. The more you do for your children, which makes you feel great because they have to come through you first, feels good that they can't do anything without me, the worse you're making them. Because if you do everything for them, they won't be able to do it themselves. And there will be a point where they will need to be independent, but you've not allowed them to do that. Ultimately, you've taken away the strength and power for them to be independent as you are now. Give them the opportunity. Never do anything for them that they can do for themselves. And that goes with your employees, that goes with any of your stakeholders in your business. Don't do anything for them that they can do for themselves. Ultimately, that's how you build a team that is not only as well versed as you are, if you are in that situation, but then they would actually exceed you. When people exceed your intellect, when people exceed your skill set and experience, and they're still within your team, that's a fantastic position to be in. And if your children then know more than you and they're capable, more capable than you are, that's a fantastic sign of you being a good parent. Now, I hope this information has been helpful to you. And if you found this helpful in any way whatsoever, please feel free to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss out when we post again. But otherwise, take care, guys, and I'll speak to you soon.